Peace and welcome to the culture right here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. Folks, we got a great show for you this afternoon. First, let's talk about President Biden's war of words, calling President Putin a war criminal. This escalates and heightens the tension within the Russian-Ukraine conflict and how that will make America respond. We'll have that conversation with political correspondent Hassan Giordano. Also, let's talk with Ashley Banks about some of the big national news. Emmett Till. We talk about Jussie Smollett and the latest developments with Brittany Griner. We'll get into those conversations. Later, can we talk about reversing toxic polarization? If we talk about what has divided us, will that bring us together? We're going to have that part of the discussion later on. And also, Ralph Lauren's new HBCU collection. Some say it's cultural appropriations. Others say it's not. We'll let you decide. Stay with us. There's a whole lot coming on today's edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show, man. Oh, man, we got a lot to get to, so let's jump right into it. The President Biden, as you know, has been leading up to the point of where we are right now, really talking about some of the atrocious acts that President Putin of Russia has been committing when dealing with this Russian-Ukraine conflict. And just yesterday, the president went as far as to say, for the first time, shifting the narrative about what's going on in Russia, calling President Putin a war criminal. Folks, this takes the conflict to a whole different level. The president says, quote, "I think he is a war criminal." Now, if you have not been keeping up, there has been numerous civilians that have been killed as a result of the Russian bombing and shelling of major cities outside of the capital of Kyiv in Ukraine and Mariupol and in other places along the southern, in the western and eastern regions of the country. And so the president is saying enough is enough. We need to call it what it is, a war criminal. I want to bring in a political correspondent. He's the host of and the founder of DMV Daily, Hassan Giordano, to give us some insight about this war of words that President Putin has with that President Biden is having with President Putin. And now in a few moments, we'll be joined by Hassan. But let me just share this with you very quickly, folks. This right here might be the harshest condemnation that the president has had against Putin at this point. And he didn't, you know, the president stopped short of labeling atrocities being documented on the ground in Ukraine as war crimes, but he did make the label or say that Putin has committed these acts. Now we know that there has been another major bombing of a theater that was sheltering some folks in Ukraine that was trying to flee the capital city and in other parts of the city, and as a result of that, folks have been injured. There have been a number of casualties, a higher number of injured folks, and so many people are wondering, when is it going to stop? Now, yesterday we talked about the fact that the Ukrainian President Zelensky, has spoken to a number of countries, stating that he needed more assistance, that Ukraine needed more help with the military. He wanted President Biden to step up to be the leader of peace. And so all of this continues to add to the already existing conflict that's happening right there. Let's bring Mr. Politics in on this discussion, Hassan Giordano. Hassan, good to talk to you once again, big brother. How are you, sir?
What's happening, Captain? Man, look, I know we're supposed to do it weekly. I didn't get a message till the day that I thought we weren't going to do it. Like, I had the studio at home all set up, ready to go. caught me off guard. So unfortunately, I got to do it from the car on the
Hey,
road.
it's all right, brother. We all right. We're gonna make sure that communication is strong for next week.
Yes, sir.
So, but look, I'm always happy to hear from you, dear brother. But what do you make of this right now? I mean, in a situation of this magnitude, Hassan, where every action from any type of leader, everything that is said from a national leader, especially coming from the president of the United States, is going to be weighed heavily, considering the nature of this conflict. But for President Biden to go as far as to say, I think he is a war criminal, not directly saying it, not saying that all the bombings of the maternity hospital to the theater to, you know, it looks like that may be the case, but he is still putting it out there. He threw the seed out there. He's a war criminal. How did we take that? How does the rest of the world take that?
Well, I think he knew what he was doing. You know, no other foreign leader has come out that far and said that, right? Because they are being more tempered in their responses to Russia and what they do towards Russia at this point. And so, and if you see the White House, let it be off the cuff remarks. These weren't comments that were put into a speech. These weren't something that he said to President Zelensky. None of that. He did it off the cuff, and he did it almost for a reason, because we know President Biden to be someone who does say some kind of off the wall, off the cuff remarks over his career. And I think that was purposely put in there. That was not just impassioned speech, right? They didn't catch him off guard. I think that they purposely did that because the White House is starting to feel pressure from Capitol Hill. Republicans and Democrats now are feeling like this administration has not been strong enough in their response to the war, in their response towards Russia. And President Zelensky has actually been strategically going behind the White House's back to make sure that they get their message across to U.S. lawmakers that they need assistance way beyond what this administration is willing to commit to at this point. Now, according to the definitions of the 1948 Geneva Convention, Farajii, in Article 8, what has reportedly, I want to say that, reportedly been done at the hands of the Russian military to the people of Ukraine is absolutely constitute war crimes, right? So in that essence, he is a war criminal, and these are crimes against humanity, which many scholars will point to actually came about in 1915 from the Allied governments, which included Russia nonetheless. But what we've known to be reported, again, because I think many people are starting to realize everything that's being said in the media is not factual, right?
Right.
These are things that are being spun in certain ways, whether it's pro-Russia or most of it anti-Russia, for a particular reason. But war criminal is a very strong word. The word genocide, acts against humanity. These are things that you want to be careful in what you say. I mean, if you remember, we got our own war. William Patterson traveled, that was 71 years ago, to Paris with a petition signed by almost 100 African Americans, many of them prominent leaders here in America, that said that the United States are war criminals, right? And has committed genocide against Black people here on the shores of North America. So we got to be very cautious on what we say, how we say it, and what they do. But if you want to be honest about it, I mean, even the president of Biden acknowledged America and its war crimes back in 1915 with the Armenian and Turkish war, and the, you know, how America and its European allies played a big part in that genocide. So I think America wants to be very cautious on its approach, but many people are getting antsy, especially in Congress, on moving even further against Russia.
I would definitely have to agree, and you will know it, and you study history, you understand the dynamics of politics, Hassan. And you know, again, I go back to one of my key premises, like the United States is being drawn into this situation. You know, this country is about to own this war. As much as the President Biden says this is Putin's war, this is going to end. And I may be wrong and way off on this, Hassan, but I feel like this is going to be a Putin-Biden war, not a Putin-Zelensky war.
Well, absolutely. And I think it was strategically initiated from Putin based off of who the president was at a time in our political history that they realized, as do American citizens, that we are weak, right? Many people across the world, we look at television and the way Congress acts here in America and think of it from one lens, and that is our nation's capital. These are our do nothing politicians, and we get upset based off of the political ramifications of whatever's being done. But around the world, foreign leaders are watching it even closer. And for somebody like Putin, who understood the calamities of what he was about to do, he knew what he was doing, right? And I don't want people to think that this is just a crazy man that's just acting out as crazy people actually would do. This is a very smart individual. You can call him any name you want to call him, but don't call him dumb, because that's exactly not what he is. He could have done this 3 years ago when we had President Trump in office. He understands the politics of America, and he understands, along with his allies in China, what they must do in order to draw America in, because they understand that America always wants to be either the big bad bully on the block or the savior of other nations to make, quote unquote, even if they have to some degree, make them democracies. And so they realized that if they did but so much, that it would force America's hand to have to get in, instead of just waiting to rely on NATO. NATO's not going to be drawn into it simply because Ukraine is not a part of NATO. And so at that point, as long as you're not attacking any NATO related country, then they're okay. That's why you haven't seen them going to Poland. And I'm sure if things continue to escalate and they fully take over Ukraine, the next sites will be on Poland, as long as they have the assistance of their partners over in China.
Well, the president actually, stepped up his words, saying at an event for St. Patrick's Day today, adding to not just he was a war criminal yesterday, saying he was a pure thug and murderous dictator today. And something that came to my mind as I was hearing this stuff being said, Hassan, was I remember during the Iraq War, the war of words that happened prior to the shock and awe campaign, the bombing campaign of Iraq. They wanted to paint the picture of Saddam Hussein as being this crazy madman with weapons of mass destruction. It was like that is part of the playbook when America doesn't like a dictator or a leader of a foreign nation. It's like that is the propaganda, and I don't know, like, part of this we could say, and this is the sensitive part. The propaganda, and I'm using that word and in its purest form, the biased narrative that's being told to us as the American people is now being painted. Like the context on how we're seeing Russia, the context of how we're seeing Ukraine is now being shaped by the United States government. And one of the things that I'm concerned about is that something that you've always talked about, and something I think a lot of people need to know, is that anytime there's the greatest casualty of any warring people or country is the truth. We don't know. And I know people have a lot of different views about what's going on across the seas, but we don't know because we're exposed to certain media. So how do we navigate through all of that to try to get to the truth, to make sure that we don't become victims, quote unquote, of the rhetoric?
Well, I think, at some point you're going to have to read between the lines. And the good thing about it, and I always say this and complain about it, the advent of the internet and especially social media has been the destruction of mankind, if you ask me, especially of African American. It's taken us back way beyond the civil rights movement. I mean, it's taken us backwards instead of progressing us forwards. Of course, technology does advance us in many aspects, but when you get too much information and you're reliant on that information at all times, sometimes that can be a deterrent. In this particular case, people can actually use that to their advantage. There's a lot of alternative news media outlets out there that are showing you what's really going on the ground, are giving you the true background of what's actually happening in this particular war and why it's happening. Let's not be fooled by that. When you see African Americans being treated like slaves and or worse than slaves in Ukraine, let's stop acting as if the Ukrainian government and its leadership and people are so much pro-African American when pictures, video, and reports on the ground show otherwise. Stop believing people when they're trying to paint a different picture from what you're seeing with your own eyes. Because I'm going to tell you something. We are being sympathetic to Ukrainian people because the America that we know in the media that it controls continues to push this narrative of the big bad wolf Putin, and why the Ukrainian people need so much help and support right now when our own people aren't getting that same support on trying to evacuate from the war zone known as Ukraine at this point. You did bring up a great point of what are these war words, because President Obama has been thought of Putin that way, but you've never heard him say that until now. So there's a reason behind that, and there's a motive behind that. You know, it could be the invasion of Russia is imminent, right? But the question then remains is, what do we as Americans get out of that? Of course, we know about the oil reserves there. Obviously, our gas prices has went up, but based off of some of that, even though their percentage of oil given to America is not that great. We've seen the same thing with the Saudis. There was no weapons of mass destruction. There's always an ulterior motive to America going to war. And what is that motive here? Because I'm going to tell you something. Even if they get rid of Putin, the Russian people will not allow America to come over and dictate who their leader will be. They'll ride with Putin way before they'll ever do something like that. They are not Saudi Arabia. They are not Iraq. They are not Afghanistan. Don't get it twisted. And so we have to be very cautious on allowing and supporting some kind of invasion in Russia unless we see a clear and definitive plan of action that actually benefits the American people and not the politics of American and European allies.
Wow. Well, one of the things that President Biden spokesperson Jen Psaki said, she said there is a legal review process that the United States undergoes to make consideration of labeling something as a war crime. She said we need to go through the legal assessment and review in order to make a formal conclusion. If that is the case, I'm wondering why throw it out there in the first place until that consideration, that review is done. You know what I mean? Because again, it's going to influence the psyche. It's going to influence the narrative. Why even throw it out there? Unless America has something planned that the American people don't know is coming.
Well, no, again, it's politics at its finest, right? It's the way to change the narrative, right? President Biden has been getting slammed for not only the lack of resources that he's been giving to Ukraine from his own party, but also from the Republican Party. They've probably done some polling and realized that the majority of Americans are in favor of disciplining Putin and in favor of the Ukraine people. So now you're starting to see the narrative change, the dialogue change. Now you're starting to see a president get more emboldened as opposed to 2 weeks ago when it didn't appear that America was ready for America to do anything to help the Ukrainian people. So as soon as, and that's the problem, politicians usually act off polls and their election bids as opposed to what's right and what's wrong.
Brother, let me tell you something. Polls will get you out of your office and polls will get you killed. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and I hear you because as I've been looking through these stories, I've been seeing that and I'm like, who are they talking to? What Americans is saying we need to go to war with Russia right now? I mean, seriously, what people, what part of this country, and I know polls are based on 1,000 people or something like that, but there are 323 million people in this country. What massive, significant group of Americans are saying we need to go to war right now? Outside of what we see coming from Congress and the war hawks there, I'm talking about the citizens, the constituents. I haven't come across anybody, And I'm being very serious. I haven't come across anybody, Hassan, that says, you know what, this is a great time to start a war with another superpower. This is perfect. Who's saying that?
The people, see, they know who they want to. I've always said this in the political, and I advise my clients. Polls are like buttholes. Everybody has them, can create them. They all stink, right? And polls are based off of the language that you use for the deterring outcome that you want, right? If I poll you and say how terrible Putin is and what he's done and these war crimes, and then lay the narrative, should America go to war and defend the Ukrainian people? Of course you're going to say yeah. Your inner gut is going to make you. But then if I turn around and give you the reason, the real reasons behind it, or talk about what's happening and give you a different perspective and different questioning and background on it, and then ask you that same question, then you're less likely to say, nah, never mind. I don't, it's really all about the communications of it, right? How you want that poll to kind of turn out. And so in this particular instance, we know that most of these polls aren't being asked to individuals who look like you and I, or probably the majority of the individuals watching the program. And that's for a reason. It's designed that way. So that way, when they do go to war and when they do make these efforts, they can point to these fake polls and say, see, well, the American people says that they wanted it, that they didn't mind us going to war because we're defending these people and their liberties and,
right,
that whole democratic talking point. And that is probably the reason why we continue to be one of the most hated nations in the world. There's a reason why China has so many African nations and other Islamic-based nations, including Russia and others, who would love for America to go over there and because they're just chomping at the bit to get back at America because we butt our nose in everything that we really don't belong in. And at the end of the day, the American people end up suffering. Look at the gas prices. Look at the economy. We're so focused on Ukraine and Russia that we're not dealing with the real issues that are facing Americans each and every day right here at home.
Let me tell you, first, you're on point with that one, bro. You are on point. The Pew Research Center put it out there. Their survey found that 35% of Americans support the U.S. taking military action, even if it risks a nuclear conflict with Russia, while 62% were opposed to the idea. That just goes to show you, man, like you don't have a consensus. And that's the big part about this, Hassan. There is no political will, political consensus from the American people that we need to butt in this situation. Like, okay, if you want to try to regulate this situation from the sidelines, if you want to try to facilitate some negotiation, if you try to work with NATO, work with the UN to make sure that people are all up on the same page. But the moment America feels like it needs to drop some bombs or have some troops going into Ukraine, going into Poland, getting ships ready to come into Russia, brother, I just don't feel like this is going to be a good idea. I just don't. And I know that the American people, I'm not talking about just black folks, white people, Latinos, Asian Americans, we don't want a war. Nobody wants a war when gas prices go high. Nobody wants a war when people are already trying to figure out the food situation. Nobody wants a war when the economy is in inflation. Who wants a war? And I know Biden has been is a veteran lawmaker. He understands the dynamics of all of these crisis pieces. So I'm a little bit shocked that he wanted to kick this thing up after 3 weeks when there have been long-standing conflicts in other parts of the world that the United States is still gaining and benefiting from.
But don't be surprised, because one thing that always bodes well in politics is wars typically allow for the sitting president and the sitting party to remain in control, right? Because American people typically during wartime don't want to change commanders in chief and don't want to change the political leadership in the midst of a war, just based off the fact that they already know they're in the midst of it. They don't want to change and have the possibility of having to alter that plan and what's going on. So, and Democrats and Republicans both know this. And look, we got midterms coming up, right? It's not a presidential election, but we got a midterms coming up. Democrats know that they have not done jack since Biden has been president. They couldn't pass almost anything other than infrastructure. And that was only because the Republicans helped them in the Senate. And so they really don't have anything to run on come November. And so an escalating war that keeps people's attention off of the U.S. economy, off of things that matter to Americans, onto something like that actually benefits Democrats at the polls, or so the political thinking would be. Wow. And I'm sure that's what their pollsters and their strategists are telling them.
My God. Hassan, thank you so much, brother, for checking in. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about some of the other national conversations that are happening. Let's talk about Jussie Smollett, the latest with that. Let's talk about the latest development with the Brittany Griner situation. And let's give you some update about how the family of Emmett Till is asking for the Department of Justice to reopen his case. Again, we'll be checking in with journalist and correspondent Ashley Banks with these stories. So stay with us. A lot to get to in the second 30 of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, thank you and welcome back to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. Folks, let's talk about some of the other big national stories that we have been keeping our eyes on. And I want to bring in journalist Ashley Banks to have this conversation because there are a number of stories, Ashley, that you have been watching and keeping us posted on. First, you wrote a piece for Essence.com, Essence Magazine's online publication, talking about the issue of how the relatives of Emmett Till want Carolyn Bryant Dunham prosecuted for false claim. Basically, they want her. They're calling for the Department of Justice to reopen the case, and they want her in behind bars. Talk to us a little bit about this effort.
Yeah, that's correct, Farajii. Recently, after the anti-lynching bill was passed a week or so ago, the family was saying they want to see Caroline Bryant behind bars. They don't just want the DOJ to reinvestigate Emmett Till's death, but they want her behind bars. So we know that this case was reinvestigated, reopened back in 2017 when a historian published Caroline Bryant's confession, stating that she lied about Emmett Till whistling at her, and that leading to his death, right, to him being tortured and lynched. But the DOJ says when they investigated this confession, they went to the historian and said, where's your proof that Caroline Bryant actually confessed? And he couldn't provide proof. And so the DOJ then went to Caroline Bryant and said, hey, did you make this confession? To which she responded, she did not. And her family members are saying that at no point in time has Caroline Bryant recanted her confession. So the DOJ, I would say right now, it is unlikely that they will reopen this case. This case was closed December 2021. And it's unlikely that they're going to charge Caroline Bryant because without any proof that she made this confession, there's nothing that they can do essentially.
She's 88 years old right now, Ashley. 88 years old. And I'm wondering, does that play any role by her, the age that she's at? I mean, does the fact that there's so much time that has passed, does that play a role in this whole situation?
Yeah, that's really interesting because Farajii, I'm sure when we all heard the news that she confessed, we all believed it, right? It was in the book, the historian put it out. That's what we've all come to understand for these last 5 years. So the fact that the DOJ was saying that Caroline Bryant has denied it and that the historian has no evidence of like interviewing Caroline Bryant, any recordings of such conversations or confessions. Basically, there's just no evidence, but you're asking if her age plays a part. It would be interesting. I have no idea. Let's say she could have Alzheimer's, right? Where she could have made a confession. And then she's going through an Alzheimer's episode and it's like, no, I never made that confession. I don't know if that's the case. The DOJ has not released any information as it pertains to like her age or her mental health or anything like that. But it would be interesting. But I do know when it comes to her age, the family does not care that there's no evidence that she confessed to the historian. They're saying she's old. This is the time. I want you guys to charge her because we believe that she lied. We believe the historian. We believe that she actually made this confession. But
there's no proof of it though.
Right. Without proof, the DOJ can't move on this.
So it's really sad.
Yeah.
Just simply because this was like a landmark case. This is a landmark lynching.
Yeah.
That has that really shifted the civil rights movement. I mean, this was one of those moments that took the civil rights movement to the next level. Some would say this really kicked off the civil rights movement, the momentum of the movement. But if they can't find a confession, and again, I think to your point, you're absolutely correct. When I heard she confessed, and I was like, oh, so she did lie. But then if there's no evidence that she lied, then, and the historian, I mean, that's like, are we kind of just like a dog trying to catch his own tail? I just feel so bad for the Till family that this has yet to be fully resolved.
Yeah, I agree. They've never seen justice. I mean, yes, there is this anti-lynching bill that's in Emmett Till's name, but that's not really doing much, right, for the Till family. Yeah, that's great that lynching is now a federal hate crime. I mean, it should have been a federal crime forever ago, right? And it's like with the Till family, they're like, we need more. We need you to really dig deeper because we believe there's more to this story. We believe that Bryant lied. And even if Bryant didn't lie, obviously Till being killed in the way that he did for whistling at this woman is not right at all. So no, they haven't seen justice. And obviously they are grasping at straws and doing whatever they can to get justice for a 14-year-old that should not have been killed and murdered in the way in which he was.
I mean, look at the picture of Emmett Till, a handsome young black man, young black boy, rather.
Yeah, 14.
14 years old. And folks, if you don't teach your children about the history of Emmett Till, like they have to know that history. They have to know that history because that's that same history you and I know, Ashley, is what we're seeing with people would call the Karens of today, you know, and it's mind-blowing that over 60 plus years later, that a white woman can make up a lie that can either cause a black man to become incarcerated or dead.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen history of that. I mean, there are countless stories of Black men going to college and having consensual relationships with white women or white girls as they're right on college campuses. And then they get caught and these white girls are basically screaming rape when none of that has happened. And then we see things happen to these Black men, unfortunately, where they're kicked off of their sports teams or end up incarcerated or just expelled from school and never getting that degree. Or in the case, like I mentioned last week about the Central Park woman, right? The white woman who called the cops on the bird watcher. And she was saying that he was hurting her and he wasn't doing absolutely anything to her, but the cops could have showed up, been on the white woman's side, and could have done crazy things to that man. They could have killed that Black man.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, we see this time and time again. And unfortunately, I know we're going to talk about Jussie later, but that's why people were bringing up the case where, you know, Jussie lied about what took place with this hoax. But many people are saying he wasn't putting anyone else in danger but himself. But then we have the Karens of the world who are literally putting Black and brown men, their lives in danger. And these people don't end up in jail. And so when it comes to Emmett Till, even if he were whistling at this white woman, it's just unfortunate that he died in the way that he did. He was murdered in the way that he was, and the Till family wants justice. They want to see justice served in this case.
It's going to be, and you know, at another point, we don't have time to talk about it today because I want to make sure that we have the right voices for this part of the conversation around the anti-lynching bill, which is something that I think is timely, but at the same time is highly fascinating that we, after mandate, the United States government really haven't mandated a bill to stop the exercise of lynching Black men and Black boys and Black girls. And I mean, for 2022 to happen, we finally have this anti-lynching bill is mind blowing. But we got to talk about that in another point. We'll certainly bring that up. But speaking of Jussie Smollett, yesterday, the former Empire actor was released from prison because based on his defense that he needed to get out as they are striving to get an appeal on his case. I'm not sure how this works out. So in this regard, like, okay, I understand that you're trying to get an appeal on a case, but I've never heard that you can get an appeal on a case and you can be let out of prison while waiting on this appeal. This is you said it last time, Ashley. There seems to be a lot more to this case, but I'm like, is this really because of this man created this whole hoax, or is this, what am I missing here?
Right. I mean, a lot of people are baffled. I know I was when I saw the breaking news that he was being released from prison after only serving 6 days of the 150-day sentence. And so for the past, I would say, few days, his defense team has basically been trying to appeal this case. They've been sending reports basically to the judge saying we need Jussie to be released because we need to protect his mental and physical health. They're saying because of COVID-19, his physical health is in danger. And then due to, just being in prison as someone who's never been there before, someone privileged like him, someone who's a celebrity, who's on television, who's never been in prison, this could really wreak havoc on his mentality. And so he needs to be released, especially since he is a nonviolent offender here. And so the judge basically agreed and said, since he doesn't pose a threat to society, let's release him while you work on your appeal. To many people, this is shocking because once you're sentenced, and usually when you're working on your appeal, your legal team's working on your appeal and you're still in prison. And so what we're seeing here could be a part of privilege. Once again, he is a celebrity, right? And he has a good legal team that he can afford. And this is why we see him released here. And once again, because he's not, he doesn't pose a threat to society, I believe it's okay to have him released back into the public, but he's still on probation. So there's not much that he can do here. But if he were to violate his probation in any capacity, obviously he's going back to prison. But we do have two outcomes that could come out of this, Farajii. And so once, the appellate judge decides what he or she wants to do here, we could see a case where this conviction is overturned, where the appellate judge would say that Jussie's due process rights were violated, simply because we saw Kim Fox, the prosecutor in the case earlier, she dropped all the charges against him, right? Just fined him the $10,000, dropped all the charges. Then we had a special prosecutor who picked up the case again, and sentenced him as he did last week. And so the appellate judge could simply say his due process rights were violated, so we're overturning this conviction. Or the judge could say that this second trial was simply a fair trial and Jussie needs to be sentenced and continue serving those 150 days in jail. So it's going to be interesting to see.
It's interesting also because his lawyer, and I want to make sure it's Ninye Uchi. Mm-hmm. He said, quote, "There's no room for politics in our court system, regardless of what you think about this case. The real question is, should Black men be walked into jail for a class 4 felony? That's a disgrace." He said the judge spent a great deal of time, speaking of Cook County Judge James Lynn, he said he spent a great deal of time berating and chastising my client. I've never seen that before. He also said that over the past 6 days, Jussie did not eat anything besides ice water.
Yeah. So the ice water thing took me by surprise. I've never been to prison, Farajii, and so I only know when it comes to what people are eating based off of what I've read, my encounters with people who have been to prison. Obviously, the food probably isn't the best, but at the same time, it's just interesting to hear that that's all he was doing was drinking water. And obviously, if you're in prison, you've never been there before, you can react differently, right? Everyone reacts differently to different situations. And so reporter asked Jussie's attorney, was he doing this in protest? And of course, the attorney gave an attorney response and basically said, how would you react if you went to prison? And so I just found that to be very interesting there. But I do agree with the attorney. I believe that, Jussie carrying out this hoax, he does need to face consequences. But I think jail was a bit excessive, especially since he doesn't pose a threat to anyone. The whole point of sentencing is to make sure that whoever was injured, you make them whole. Here, Jussie was injured, and obviously people who are victims of hate crimes, you can't really do anything there. But when it comes to making someone whole or deterring someone from carrying out these actions in the future, that's how you come up with your sentence, what's going to deter them. And I don't believe jail is the answer here, especially being around others who are violent, right? Others who pose a serious threat to society. And so I do agree with the attorney. I think it's best that Jussie isn't in jail, but it's going to be interesting to see what this appellate judge says.
It will be interesting, because now at this point, actually, with this case, I have to get out of thinking, oh, this is going to be shocking. This will never happen. This stuff is happening. Stuff is actually happening. Speaking of something else that is happening, and we've talked about, which is the case of Brittany Griner. This is the WNBA star that had traveled to Russia to do some professional work. Ended up on her way back, had some products or some oil that she's not allowed to travel with, some hashish oil, and essentially she was imprisoned in Russia. And this, of course, happened before the conflict of Russia and Ukraine started back in February. More of her story is coming out, but now the latest is that a Russian court out of Moscow announced that they have extended her arrest until May 19th. Talk to us a little bit about, what's going on with this situation.
Yeah, that's correct. She's going to be in Russia. She's going to remain detained in Russia until May 19th. So that's going to make her detained for about 3 months. So now we know that she was detained between February 17th and February 19th for carrying, like you said, cannabis oil in her luggage, something that is highly illegal in Russia. And if she's convicted, she could face up to 5 to 10 years in prison, which is outrageous, right? And so the court in Russia said that they extended her time in Russia just because of a pending investigation. And so they want to keep her there and investigate further. I'm not sure what it is that they want to investigate further, Farajii. A lot of information is sparse, and it has been sparse, right, since she has been detained in Russia. But I do know some family members and some of her teammates have been in contact with her. She was last seen during her court appearance last Thursday to find out that she would be staying in Russia for another 2 months as they investigate this case. But Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, as we spoke of before, is working on trying to get her back in this country and has been speaking with Biden, hoping to see a change. But as of right now, we haven't seen much movement on the US's part or any change in if Brittany Griner is coming back over here, right? Or if she's going to remain in Russia and is going to be sentenced to these 5 to 10 years. And so this is a very sad case. She had been in Russia for 7 years, off and on during her off season from the WNBA, just to supplement her salary, right? She was making more than $1 million by playing in a Russian league during the off season, which is more than quadruple what she's making at the WNBA. And so she was just trying to do her job, and now she's being detained in Russia. And I can only think about what she's feeling, how she's feeling. I heard a soundbite today from her wife, who is just a little fearful. She's been told by everyone, just stay busy, don't stay focused on what's happening. But it's hard to not focus on the reality that a loved one is in Russia, for goodness sake. Russia right now, who's invading Ukraine and who's run by a dictator. And so really no one knows what's going to happen here.
No one knows. Here's an interesting point about it, that it was reported that the Russian state news agency TASS said that the Moscow's Public Monitoring Commission, by the name of Ekaterina Kulagina, said who is responsible for observing the treatment of prisoners. They said that Kulagina visited Brittany at her pretrial detention center and was quoted as saying that the U.S. consul has not visited the WNBA star, despite Russian authorities' willingness to create all conditions for their visit. Have you heard anything about that?
No, I haven't, but that's interesting. And so I'm not sure how much of that I would actually believe until getting a statement from the US's side. simply because right now Russia would probably do everything it can to look good, right? They want to do everything they can to look good in the public eye. And that's the job of the person who put out the statement, to put out a good statement. Let's make Russia look great. So I would take that with a grain of salt and wait for a statement from the US. To see what's really going on there, because who knows, right? And I don't want to speculate. Who knows what's really happening?
And now we also, as we saw with Congresswoman Congresswoman Jackson from the state of Texas has already put a word that to free Brittany. Now Brittany has another supporter in someone who I didn't think would actually. I didn't think this would be on her radar. Former First Lady, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton posted a message on Twitter about Brittany Griner's case and said #free Brittany. Yeah. How much power, how much weight will that carry in this whole scenario?
Oh, it could carry a lot, being the positions that she's held in the past, the connections that she has. I would think she's probably on a higher level, right, than Sheila Jackson-Lee at this point. She has different connections, but also she's white, right? And so being a white American, it means a lot to speak up when it comes to this, because we see a lot of the Black community rallying behind Brittany Griner, trying to get her back. But a lot of people in the Black community don't have the power to get her back. And so it's important that we have people in different sections in this country helping, right, that movement to get Brittany back. And so I believe that Hillary Clinton, she has connections, right, that Sheila Jackson-Lee doesn't have. And so, and international connections at that. So it's going to be interesting to see if she can actually pull on those connections and find a way to get that woman back in this country. But like you, Farajii, I was really shocked when I saw that tweet. Hillary Clinton was the last person I would think.
The last person. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest with you. She was the last person. I mean, I'm happy that she put it out there, because to your point, she has a large network. She has a great reach. She has those connections. She has those contacts and relationships. But I just never thought that she would say, hey, free Brittany.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's all. And you know what? Sometimes that's all it takes from high-profile individuals is just a simple mention. A simple mention, and then the balls start rolling. So we will have to see, but I certainly encourage everybody to continue to pray for Brittany's safety and that she comes back home very, very soon. Hopefully, even before the May 19th date that was given to her. So, we're certainly going to keep our eyes on it. Ashley, thank you so much for bringing us up to date on these latest developments with these big stories. We'll certainly reach back out to you.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Farajii.
Absolutely. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's talk about how do we reverse toxic polarization in this country. It's time for us to have another conversation about, talking. I'll explain it to you. We'll have that discussion. And then later, Ralph Lauren is under some fire before its new HBCU collection. Some people are saying it's cultural appropriation, while other people are saying, no, read the fine print. I'll give you more of the details on that matter. So we got a lot to get to on the next hour, so stay with us. It's The Culture right here on the Black Star Network.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome to the second hour of today's fantastic show right here on the Culture on the Black Star Network. Let's talk a little bit about something that I think that we cannot forget, something that I think that is so important, that you're talking about essentially the future of this country if we do not address the big elephant in the room, which is the division that is currently present in the United States of America. Folks, there have been a number of surveys done. There have been a number of studies done that show that America is more divided now than she has ever been. And if you think about how serious that really is, that we got more technology, we're part of a global network, people are making more money, all of these things, right? How is it that this country is still divided more now than it has ever been? Considering, if you think about the history of this country and all of the big crises that have had that this country has had to face, all of the big movements, social movements that this country have undergone, we're more divided now than ever before. There was a op-ed that ran in the USA Today by a gentleman by the name of Pierce Godwin. And Pierce puts up the idea that he said, America is in danger of falling apart. We need to act now before it's too late. And one of the big ideas that he said within his op-ed was that we're so divided in this country that if we don't do something right now, if we don't change the course of the conversation, if we don't become intentional in bridging the gap that divides us, whether it's political gaps, economic gaps, educational, social gaps, then we're going to find that this country will no longer be. And I think that he has a point, which is why I wanted to have this conversation with my culture crew. We're joined by Rashad Staten, and of course, Nira Muhammad. Rashad serves as an educator. He is also an activist, and Nira is an educator as well. And she's host of Queen Talks with Nira Muhammad. That podcast can be heard on all streaming platforms. But Rashad and Nira, again, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. Good to see you.
Hey, peace and blessings. Always a pleasure. Nira, what's up, sis? How you? Farajii, always good for the culture.
Always trying to be, big brother, trying to be. All right, let's jump into this right here. Because I think Mr. Godwin is on to something which I think we need to delve deep into. In his piece, he was saying that he said that experts who witnessed sectarian violence break out in countries around the world are sounding the alarm in the United States, begging us to grasp what our once exceptional nation could soon become. This danger isn't lost on the American people. Check this out. He said more than 80% of those responding to an action button poll recently published across media networks for their Listen First coalition said that they want a less divided America. Let me just throw this this stat up here. Check this out. Here's what we got. According to the USA Today and Hidden Common Ground survey, 79% of Americans who believe creating more opportunities for people to talk with those who have different values and views would be effective in reducing divisiveness. Look at that, folks. 79%. When assured that they would be listened to respectfully, more than 4 times as many Americans, 61%, are interested in talking across differences. 79%, Rashad and Nira, believe that the number one priority that this country needs to really address, and I will call it the intangible, because we could talk about economy, we could certainly talk about education, we could talk about law and crime and all of those things. Those are the more like tangible stuff. But the big cultural intangible is the fact that this country is divided. And it looks like a lot of people don't mind staying divided. Rashad, what's your take on it, sir?
Oh, you're muted.
You on mute? We got you on mute.
Yeah, this poll itself doesn't surprise me much. From my level of understanding, I see it as a good starting point to show that we as American citizens are willing to have these type of courageous conversations. The reality is the systemic and the governmental structures and all of the implications that come with it creates a system that doesn't allow us to see each other's humanity. And that forces us to be subjugated into this divisive mentality when in the world, I think our systems hasn't caught up with the progressiveness of society itself. So we see one thing where the people willing to have these conversations, but we need to have agencies, programmings, thought leaders, elected officials, and influencers that are willing to change how systems operate that doesn't allow us to share space with each other.
I agree. Nira, what's your take on this?
No, Rashad literally said exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, okay, the conversation is a good starting point for sure. It's definitely a great starting point. But are there going to be systems in place that change the actual culture? Talking about it is not enough. I think it's great. But how many times have we had conversations with people that you felt like went in one ear and right out the other? What is going to be put in place to actually shift the culture itself? And it's not going to be, to having a conversation is not enough. Like Rashad mentioned, unless there are systems in place that will actually create and garner change, we're going to keep hitting roadblocks. We can talk until we're blue in the face, but unless there are some real systemic changes in America, there's going to be a further divide, because I think we as a people, and I would say Black and brown communities, disenfranchised, I'm not even going to say just Black and brown, I'm going to say disenfranchised communities, we are tired. We are very, very, very tired. And there are just certain conversations that we're like, we have people at the top who they don't even understand. They can't even literally understand where we're operating from. If we listen to some of the things even the Republican Party says when they're talking about, for instance, when we were getting the stimulus checks, how many people in the Republican Party were like, you don't need these stimulus checks, but a lot of them are the top 1%, the top 5%, the top 10%. So they're not operating from a space of not having money in the bank account, not having money invested in Pfizer, invested in Moderna, and all these other companies. So we're operating from such different vantage points that I think that there are certain people that need to have these conversations. I'm sorry to say, what I mean? But it's like, okay, do the people on Baltimore Street need to have a conversation with the people on Pennsylvania Avenue? No. We need to have real conversations that are actually going to garner change. Not just, let's just talk about our feelings. No, after this conversation, what comes next?
And you know what? I wholeheartedly agree with that. But I do believe that we're at a point right now, Nira and Rashad, where we can't even get two people with differing views in the same space, let alone trying to change systems and policy, right? Like people literally do not want to talk to people who think differently from them. Like everybody wants to be in their echo chamber. Everybody wants to be, everybody wants to have their ideas validated. No one wants to have their ideas challenged.
I personally feel like we're living in a time when everybody is programmed to think and act exactly the same. It's funny because I was just listening to like a student like getting in trouble from her mom, and she made a joke where she was like, you know, you want that iPhone 11, you about to get an Android. And I'm like, even something as small as this divide between an Android user and an iPhone user, it's kind of funny to me. But it's like, on one hand, we say we want to be different, but on the other hand, you're made fun of for being different. It's like we all have to like the same things. We all have to. I mean, I'm a Galaxy user, and I stay with the latest Galaxy. This is not an old cheap phone. But you will be amazed how many people make fun of me for having a Samsung. Yeah. I tried iPhone. I don't like iPhone. I'm so sorry if I'm not a follower. But this is the system that we live in. We live in a time where you're made fun of for being different. You have to, they want you to be, everyone is programmed to be exactly the same. We have to think the same. We have to do the same things. And when you do think outside that box, a lot of people are afraid of being canceled.
And Rashad, if that's the case, right, and people have to, and I'm like this, and something that Nira is talking about, Rashad, that is like very, very like low on the priority scale about phones. That's stuff that children would do. I'm talking about grown ass adults, right? Grown ass adults ready to go to war with you over an idea, over a perspective, over a viewpoint, like. You know, even with, you know, calling you out your name, talking bad about your family, wishing death upon you, just simply because you don't agree with them. And I'm saying that if you look on social media, right, we have been in, and look, I personally, after a while, I've stopped getting to some of these conversations. You know, Nira will tell you, she gets into them and she gets ready to rock and roll.
No, but
I'm at a point where, if I can't have a conversation that's rooted in either facts, hell, it could be my own opinion. It's just my opinion. That's how I see the world. Why are you ready to go to war with me over the world? It forces me to ask the question, do we really want to make, you know, be in a place of unity? And I'm not talking about with white and black and all of them. Hell, I'm talking about within black people. Do black people want to be united? Do we want to be at a point where we're saying, we can let's agree to disagree, but there's another consensus. There's a bigger goal at the. I don't see us at that point right now, Rashad.
Yeah, I think what we at in itself is just a space of absenteeism when it comes to critical thinking, right? And it has to be a willingness to embrace the level of uncomfortability. You know, uncomfortability sometimes brings growth or self-reflection and transformation. So in that space, you got to have people that's willing to have these uncomfortable conversations, but these purposeful ones. And without critical thinking, you know, the absentee of critical thinking can be implications of what we see in our everyday life, down to, you know, surface level things of like the different type of phones and preferences of how we use certain tools. But also our educational system doesn't allow our young people to grow into adults who are critical thinkers. Most of the public education system is set up for you to regurgitate rhetoric that's being taught to you by someone else, for you to check off an answer that is the preferred answer versus you making sense of your own truth, right? And that's why it's important to have educators like yourself, Nira, that formulates a different approach to how we're developing our minds and how we engage with our peers, either being young people and adults. But then you got to face it. Most of the times when we are sharing our vantage points on social media, it's already built in with a back-end algorithm of likeness. Right. So most of our followers are following the same thing, receiving the same information, reposting information that you already knew, that builds a sensationalism, thinking that you are already correct without even expanding on those that think opposite of it. So when it comes down to race, when it comes down to economics, social experiences and things of that sort, if I'm in a classroom, I'm in a boardroom, I'm in an office, I'm at my workspace, and all of us think alike, when you come across someone else that's different, you turn your nose up to them rather than sitting back and being an empathetic and compassionate leader. So these polls say one thing, but the reality is we got societal tools that don't allow us to expand on how we should operate as human beings.
Yeah. And I think that here's to add to that, brother, is that, you know, the critical part of division is taking the time to listen. I don't know if we have the skill set at this point. Like maybe we need to reteach that, you know, and I'm not talking about in a classroom setting, but we need to teach the art and the skill of listening. There's a science to listening, not listening to just only till you can respond, but listening to become empathetic, listening to try to understand the other person's viewpoint, listening to see if there is some common ground that can be established between you and the other person if y'all are not agreeing.
Can I just throw something out there? As an educator, I get so offended sometimes when I hear people say that certain things are not taught in schools. That's bullshit. That's not true. We do teach these things in school. We have restorative circles. Each month we choose a different, actually empathy was our word for the month, our attribute last month at the school that I'm teaching at. This month is synergizing, and that's just all of us being on one accord. Right now in my class, we're learning all about community, and we're actually building a 3D construct of community and what that means and how we see ourselves in our communities. So I think it's oftentimes where we're like, oh, I didn't learn that in school. And you're like, no, actually, you did learn it in school. You just didn't pay it any attention, or you forgot. That's just where maybe you just forgot. But I will say I'm offended as an educator when I'm constantly hearing that these things are not taught, because they are. I'm very strategic, and even the books, the picture books that we read in our class and what they're teaching and what they're representing. So I will say this, though, as an educator, I am combating everything outside of the classroom when kids come back in here. I am combating what's going on in their cell phones, what's going on in their neighborhood, what's going on with their parents, what's going on with their siblings, what's going on with XYZ. And it's like I'm constantly having to reprogram my students. Every Monday, I have to reprogram my students to being in Mrs. Muhammad's class.
Right.
So, and Rashad, and I agree, like, I can't speak for every school, but I will say that we are striving as educators to include those. We as educators wear so many different hats. I am not just a teacher. I am a counselor. I am a nurse. I'm a mom. I can't even tell you how many hats I wear. I'm exhausted because of how many hats I wear by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Exhausted. I had to have 3 restorative circles in my classroom today. We address issues as soon as they happen. Circle up. We're going to talk about it.
And you know what?
Rashad, don't you teach a little bit of restorative practices and restorative justice? Wasn't it something that you did for a while?
I do it. Yeah. So thank you for correcting that. Even the conversation around divisiveness. Thank you for correcting me from generalizing versus specifying. I should have specified versus generalizing. But yeah, that's what. And these conversations like this of like, all right, making somebody more self-aware is the conversation to finally see impactful change and implementation of different approaches. I agree. What we see in these strategies and programmatic efforts around restorative practices, holistic circles, courageous conversations, equity protocols, those things do exist. But in a larger scale, I would like to see it operate across all of states. And again, if we're thinking in a larger sense, it's like it's called the United States of America, right? Where we are. The purpose is to be united. It's not uniformity states of America where we should all think and act alike. And that's when we got to start understanding the difference between language and how language shows up in everyday life. Unity means that we can be understandable despite our different lenses, experience, and expectations. But uniformity is a space where we often think if we're united, we all got to act, think, and walk and speak alike. That's
exactly.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And you know, and I love that, Rashad. And to your point, dear, I love that as well. I mean, the fact is, and this is something that I gleaned from the National Black Political Convention that was held 50 years ago in 1972. One of the big things that they said, bringing all these Black folks together, you know, it was said that unity, the theme was unity without uniformity. To bring people together, to allow them to still have their individualism. We respect their individualism. However, your individualism does not supersede the collective progress. right? And I think that is one of the things that has been disrupted from us as a people in this country, where there was a time where we did have unity without uniformity. Okay, everybody's not going to be a doctor, lawyer. We saw Black people moving in those spaces, right? And then the culture started to change, where it was less community, more individual, and it started to break us up, right? I remember that me generation started to. I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. It got to the point, it just got all about you, the I. Yeah. That's what social media is built upon.
I remember growing up when you saw all the grandmas out sweeping their porch. You know, the marble steps were swept. The community was kept clean. You knew the people in your community. You knew the person a couple of blocks down. You could just go to their house, and if you came home and your mom didn't see you, she knew whose house you were at in the community. We have to get back to that. I love that you guys made that difference between uniformity and unity, because I think that's where we're getting confused. People are pushing back on the uniformity, not unity. I think we're pushing back on uniformity because they've gotten so intermingled, you know what I mean, when they shouldn't have been. And I agree. I know I have rebel tattooed on my foot. The moment you tell me I got to think and act like everyone else, I'm running out the door. That's just not me. But again, I think it's because we've just gotten those wires crossed. I never put words to that until you two just did today. So thank you guys. Yeah. Like, I never thought of it in that like uniformity. I've never thought of that word before. So yeah.
I mean, because it creates this homogenized culture, right?
Look at y'all using our big words. I can't with y'all too.
But I mean, if you think about it, it creates this homogenized culture, right? That is acceptable. And that is palatable for everybody to accept. And guess what? That doesn't have to be the case. Like, we can still show ourselves, our individuality, our cultural backgrounds, all of those things. But I mean, who's going to say? And just think about this. Who is going to say, I don't want better schools? I don't want a better economy? Who is going to say, I don't want freedom, justice, and equality? Who pushes back on those principles and those ideals? No one, right? So yes, that's where we start. But I think that one of the big things that we're seeing in this country right now, folks, is the fact that we have leadership. And this is the sad part. And this is where I think that we have the greatest opportunity. Leadership has created a culture where it's all about the individual. That's leadership. And that's the corruption within the leadership space, right? Where they have created that. So if leadership has created a culture where they're trying to tell us it's all about the individual, that corporations is better than community. If leadership has placed an emphasis on nationalism versus being a part of a global community, right? If leadership has done that, it's only right that the people, the citizens, the constituents stand up and say enough is enough, because it is those ideas, those isms that has destroyed us, that is dividing us. Yeah. And that's the pushback I want us to start to look at, because people act like, and Rashad and Neil, y'all both know, back in the day, we look to government for everything. But what if your government is becoming your enemy? What if your government is the source of your division?
Has the government become our enemy, or has the government as Black people always been our enemy?
Well, the government as Black people has always been our enemy, but now the government is becoming the enemy of not just Black folks. I don't think. I think it's all people. I think that the corruption that we're seeing in government has gone beyond just racial lines and ethnic lines.
But which calls my question. Go ahead, Rashad.
What caused my question is that these data points that you lifted up, right, and from this the poll itself, is these numbers that is inclusive of all folks, or is these data polls that was collected by Black folk, right?
Well, these are probably all folks, most likely.
Right. So with that being said, I'm thinking it's like now we as people have to change our environments and the spaces that we often show up in so that we can share space with other people that don't look like us, that think otherwise, right? Like if anyone knows me, I enjoy going to cigar lounges because now I'm sitting across somebody that doesn't look like me, coming from a different cultural background, may have been a traveler, right? And they are a transplant to the city or the space that I frequent. And we have conversations around politics, sports, business, and things of that sort, and it sharpens your mind. Now you go into another space and you can already start to build up your level of understanding to other people that often would see you and think that you don't know otherwise of what to speak to, right? And it just gives a space of more, intellectual understanding or understanding of people and personnel, right? So I think a lot of times the divisiveness comes in us being subjugated to only frequent spaces that we're comfortable in. I like to go in spaces where I feel as though I'm gonna take ownership and my black body belongs there, even if you ain't used to seeing one of us sitting there. And I dare you to ask me.
And let me just say, and I agree with you, brother, but it's not just about race.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's really not about, because that's easy. I think that's an easy place. That's an easy place for us to kind of work from. I'm talking about attitudes. I'm talking about mindsets that you can go, that the three of us may go into some spaces with other black people and feel rejected.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like we can go into other places and still not feel like we belong there, right? And I mean, you see black folks congregating, you see black folks talking, but you're like, I just don't feel the vibe. I just don't feel the energy right now of this situation. And I'm saying
isn't that okay though? Isn't that okay? Is it not okay to be like, you know what? I'm not feeling the vibes of this. I might be more of an artsy. Me and Rashad kind of have some similarities in our personalities. So maybe Rashad and I might not be comfortable in certain spaces in the hood. I'm not saying we don't go in the hood because we do, but I'm just saying like we're artsy people.
But see, no, that's fine. No, I'm not saying that part.
I'm just saying there are certain spaces where I may not feel comfortable. Does that mean I'm gonna be rude or disrespectful? No, absolutely not. But I'm also not gonna put myself in a space where I'm not comfortable myself.
No, that makes total sense, right?
That doesn't mean that I am like anti whatever they have going on. I'm just like, I hope y'all having a good time. Okay, I see you. I'm gonna go on over here and read my little book. Like that's just me. And that's okay.
Right. But see, that's an individual, and I'm saying that's an individual experience, which is fine if you individual. But I'm saying that for us collectively, as a people, as a nation within a nation, that we are going to have to create a safe space for us to be disagreeable. We're going to have to create a safe space for us to not be on the same page, because at the root of it should be like, look, you're an artist, you're a writer. That's not me. However, you still create, right? Yeah. So we use the term creative because why? We want to create use language that embraces all versus keeping us divided like an art. Oh, you're a writer. Oh, I'm a musician. Or I'm an actor. No, you're a creator. And so, I mean, I think that's the part.
I think you got to be more specific, Farajii, when you have this conversation about divisiveness, because divisive in what areas? I think it's so broad that it's kind of like we get a little lost in what exactly are we talking about when we talking about this divisiveness. Are we talking about economics? Are we talking about the way that the community should be run? Are we talking about the way that the government should be run? Are we talking about the way that education should be run? Because I think that this is just too broad. Like what we need to like focus in a little bit more. Well, because in some ways we are divisive, but then in other ways we are coming together as a people. We are becoming more accepting of other communities, the LGBTQIA community. We're becoming way more accepting of that community. We are becoming more accepting, I think, in America than what we were 20 years ago. 20 years ago, two men couldn't even get married, but they can now. And it's a beautiful thing that we are shifting some of those cultural changes that we used to have before. So again, I think we have to be a little bit more specific when we're talking about this decisiveness, because I do think that people are starting to come together. We saw with George Floyd. George Floyd sparked global protests, that we've never seen that. So we do see people are coming together. So I think we just have to be a little bit more specific about what we're not coming together about or on.
Here's what I want to say then and I think that's an excellent point, dear. Here's what I would say, that there is power in constructive conversation.
Okay, I like
meaning that, like, just as much as you might have those restorative circles in your classroom, you know what I mean, you kind of key in on, you know, what was the violation and all of those things. It's the same thing I think that we can start having in the communities. Constructive conversation, right? Having you know what I'm saying, like having a space, and it might be a group, it might be an organization, it might be a group of citizens that are saying, you know what, we're going to have these hard conversations in a certain way. Maybe we have a third party there. Maybe we have some folks to make sure that the conversation doesn't get into a hurtful or emotional space, but it can get to a space of understanding and truth.
I was just gonna say, and Rashad, you could speak to this too, in terms of restorative circles. You can't have these conversations unless you're actually open to listening and hearing the other person. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I was asked to have a restorative circle with a coworker. I was like, I'm not having it. I'm not. I was like, because I already know what space I'm gonna be operating from. It's not gonna be restorative.
Right. And
so you have to be honest with yourself about what space you are in mentally and emotionally. Like, am I in a place where I can restore this relationship? Because I was not in a space where I was ready to restore the relationship. Did I lay out all of my grievances in a very respectful, beautiful email? Absolutely. Was I ready to sit in front of this woman and have a conversation? No.
So I think that's absolutely, and I think that's the big question that have to ask ourselves individually. But I think there's also a big question that we, as part of the Black community of Black America, needs to ask. We need to ask ourselves this question, which is, do we want to make America better?
I thought you were gonna say great again.
No, because I don't want language is important, so I don't want people to think that I'm promoting Trump or something like that. No, but I'm saying at the root of all of the pain, the struggle, and the challenges that Black people in this country face each and every day,
I want to see us be
restored. Do we want to make America better? Do we want to take full ownership of this country and more importantly, full ownership of our destiny and our fate to say, you know what? I want to make it better, because no conversation, no technique on how to having a conversation is going to improve. It's like you're a part of a relationship. If the relationship are going through challenges, the counselor always asks the very first question: do you want to be in this relationship or not? Because if you do, there's one set of things that we can go. But if you don't, it's no point. So we got to ask ourselves, in our relationship to this country as a people, do we want to be in this relationship? And I think, Rashad, that's the overarching question that we have to ask. I think that's the big thing. You got 30 seconds, bro.
No, I think you nailed it on the head. The idea of, like, are you ready? Do you have the capacity? Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to be understanding and reflective? And then at that point, are you willing to act? And after that is then, all right, once you have these thoughts put on paper that is being resolute in some type of way, how are we going to make sure that it moves up the ladder, that we can have systemic change and space for us to see change happen in our lifetime? Because other than that, we'll continuously have the same repetitive conversations over and over that just becomes, a dulled voice, and you don't see nothing manifest itself. But I think you nailed it on point, and I think the critical point of being specific to the umbrella of divisiveness is the first part to go, right? You can't just sit in general and speak of divisiveness, and then we got 20 different topics that we can possibly pick up, because now we're divisive on the different lenses that we want to approach around the solution.
That's it. Oh, look, I gotta take a quick quick break. Excuse me. When we come back, more from our culture crew: Rashad Staten, Nira Muhammad, and a whole lot more. We're going to switch gears. Big conversation there, but let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about Ralph Lauren's HBC collection. How some people say it's cultural appropriation, while other people say you're wrong. Let's have the conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Hey, Black, I love y'all. All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, the billion-dollar fashion house, Ralph Lauren, who has been known for its very, very particular style, has decided to branch out now. I want to just show you these pictures because I think a picture is worth 1,000 words here in this situation with their new HBCU collection. Now, take a look at this, folks. This is Ralph Lauren. Look at these pictures. Look at the styles of this. This is beautiful right here. Nira, I know, dear, this is right up your alley. This is right.
I love this fashion.
I see you. I see you. This is from Ralph Lauren. Look at this.
It's so amazing.
These are the fits, right? These are the fits of Ralph Lauren. Now, Ralph Lauren.
Order because I need some.
Now, here's the situation with Ralph Lauren. Ralph Lauren has decided to put their resources and to put their brand behind this new line to celebrate HBCUs. The thing is that some people say it's cultural appropriation. However, folks, do you think that Ralph Lauren can just put this together without Black folks being at the table?
Absolutely not. Morehouse and Spelman definitely teamed up with them because this is like an ode to Morehouse and Spelman. They definitely teamed up with them to create this line, to design this. This is Black designers getting a seat at the table. We've always wanted to get these seats at these types of tables. So for us to finally be getting them, when I see Black designers getting to sell their merch in Target, these things make me happy, especially as a Black designer and artist myself. Why should we not be able to get into big commercialized spaces? Why not? I think it's beautiful. Yeah. Why is it not beautiful that we're finally being recognized for what we bring to fashion? Because we bring a lot. I'm tired of us always having to look to other cultures and other big fashion houses in order to promote Black excellence. Yes, I do want to see more Black, of course, designer or companies being promoted. But if Black designers are on this project and they design it and these fabrics, I am all for it. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
So it's not a cultural appropriation if Black folks.
There was some white people wearing the outfits, yeah.
Well, and the other thing is because some people, Rashad, will say, you know what? Why do we give our skills and our talents to a white company like Ralph Lauren? They're making money off of it. Yes, we're putting out our ideas, but some people still have a problem with it.
Well, one, I'll say this. We're going to just stake the claim now. It's cool to invest in Blackness. right?
Yes.
It is cool to invest in Blackness. It renders revenue and a return on investment that even these top 10% that is controlling the market has learned this, right? But what we're seeing now is some respectability towards the investment in Blackness. We're seeing it from some parts of the NFL to the NBA. We're seeing it in other places. Just visually seeing this, it's very symbolic and representative of the Boule, right? These times when our great D9 and Greek letter organizations was there, when they was little photography was in existence or used to scale out what our imagery looks like, that this shows some honor of the representation and the legacy of Black folks, right? And then the second that I want to build off is this level of like divisiveness. At one point, then we yell to the fences saying, hey, we belong at these tables. We belong to be these designers, these creative partners. And then when we finally get it, we're still questionable of the intent. But we should not be questionable of the intent until we follow the dollars. If Ralph Lauren and others are saying that they are using Black designers to honor HBCUs, and we can follow the dollars to go back into capital projects, investments in helping to change policy and legislation, that our HBCUs across the country are still dealing with de jure segregational policies in comparison to TWIs and PWIs, and we can see that they are helping with them, then I am all in favor of it. One, and the second, and my third point to it is this: it looks good. One, it looks good, and this is a marketing strategy that we don't see H&M putting a young Black boy on there and saying monkey. Or Gucci having the red lip. And
Rashad, when Black people get a little bit of money, Rashad, you know the first thing they want to do is go buy Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Balenciaga. Black people equate Black excellence to white designers. We know they do. I get pissed off by it, to be honest. I know for me, I've been trying to like invest in like Brandon Blackwood, Black owned designers. They are luxury. I'm sick of, as soon as Black people think we're doing something, we're validated through these white designers. So for people to be behind our cultural appropriation, that's a little weird to me, because I feel like Black people are so big on, oh my God, I gotta have Gucci sandals, I gotta have a Louis Vuitton belt, I gotta have a Gucci belt. But now all of a sudden, when a white designer, well, not white designer, but a white company uses Black designers to create a line that honors Black excellence in our history, now it's a problem? Make it make sense.
Yeah. Well, let me just share with you what so many people are saying. Janelle checked in and she said, we just have to make sure the profits get back to support the culture and community that inspired Ralph Lauren. Now,
hold up. Hold up. Who does I want you to put exactly who designed this, because I bet you there were Black designers behind this project.
No, Black designers were behind this.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so let's
No,
so
no,
they
no.
got
Black
paid.
Designers,
Black designers designed this. This is their
Black
work.
Designers designed this.
They get paid for this, so we're gonna shit on Black designers.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
I'm
like,
asking questions.
No. I don't think we need to make Black designers feel bad. Matter of fact, as a matter of fact, I think that's the purpose of being a Black designer, right? Like, the Black designer is going to work for a company that is going to value their creativity. And if it's that company happens to be Ralph Lauren, like if our children or Rashad, your children, you say, hey, I want to be a designer, you're not going to be like, you may say, hey, open up your own design house, open up your own fashion house. Or you could just say, okay, be a designer. And then if your child come back and say, Dad, I work for Ralph Lauren, I work for Gucci, I work for something like that, son, then put yourself in every design.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great
start. You see what I'm saying? Like, you're going to have to still work within their parameters, but you can still be creative to show that you know your Blackness is not going to be diminished as a result of you working at Gucci, Ralph Lauren, or whoever other fashion.
A lot of Black dollars are going to these major houses. That's why I'm like, you guys want to yell out cultural appropriation, but yet as soon as you get a little money, you got to go to the Gucci store or Louis Vuitton. Please stop. I don't want to hear it.
I think everyone is making these valid points in it. I think this is a great start for a luxury brand such as Ralph Lauren. and showing a different direction of the organization. I think it's a great starting point. And like we said, if we follow the dollars and we can see an investment going into Black communities, Black collegiate institutions, then who is us to question it when it's being designed by Black folks in good likeness? Right.
Let me ask y'all a question.
Representational point, and it doesn't take out the competitiveness. It doesn't say that we can't invest into Black-owned luxury brands that are up and coming and is emerging and have found a way to be sustainable. Right. I think this is a good point, and like I said, it's not something where we can call out them doing harm to us, because it is not imagery that is making us look animalistic, that's making us look less deserving. But it's also exposing us to different ways of life and apparel that sometimes we need to be exposed to. And it has to be that delicate balance of Blackness, because again, we're not of uniformity, right? But we can show up in a unified mindset and still wear our clothes the way that we best feel like as individual people. So if I want to go to a Black luxury owned brand and invest a couple thousand, and then I want to go across the street and go into Ralph Lauren, I now can know and look for what I want that is designed by Black people. And we have seen this. This hoodie right here has just took Adidas over this top from the a Black and brown person and designer, right?
Who
we have seen this.
Wait a minute, Rashad,
this hoodie right here, the Essentials, it's under Adidas, but at the sense, it has just reined that revenue up. That is a Black designer. We have seen it from Virgil with Louis Vuitton. We have seen it with Dapper Dan just released his collaboration with Gap, right? Beyonce. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, I know a lot of people have been asking, are Black
Gabrielle Union, New York and Company. Look, I'm over here like I'm thinking of all these Black designers now that are with these major companies, New York and Company, Gabrielle Union. Her line is beautiful. There are a lot of Black designers that are with these powerhouses and creating lines for Black women and Black men. Why not?
But here's the other part about it. The other part about it is, even if you can name them, then that means there aren't enough.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If you could just be like, okay, one Black person here, one Black person here, one Black person, we're still not represented in high fashion spaces, right? We're still, and I'm saying in terms of designing, in terms of dictating the policy, or in terms of creating a cultural space for, like, Black people are not represented in these high profile fashion spaces.
And as they're becoming represented, we're questioning whether or not it's cultural appropriation. I'm asking.
Well, we're questioning. I think.
I mean, honestly, with the whole Gucci with the red lip thing, that was just completely inappropriate. But clearly, that was not designed by Black people. You knew that.
But say, for example, like, people have asking, and I'm just right now, I'm just speculating. Well, really just wondering if this was designed, even though this is not designed by white designers, but if it was designed by white designers who say, you know what, we need to say something about HBCUs, would we be mad?
I feel like then you can throw on a tag.
Now, look, to me, if the quality of the design is crappy, if the quality of the design is disrespectful, it would be one thing. But
I don't know. I'm admit, Farajii, I get a little irritated when I see like white authors making Black children's books sometimes. Hear me out though. I get irritated because as a Black writer and author and illustrator, it is very hard for us as Black authors and writers to get published by major publishing companies. It is still really, really hard for us to get into those spaces. So when I get Black books and I find out that the author is white, I am not going to lie. I do get a little irritated with that, because I'm like, there are so many Black authors and illustrators that are still struggling to get into these major publishing companies. And I feel like our stories are like not being put on the forefront, but then you want to take Black stories because we need more Black representation in children's books, and you can those roles to white people, and then it's like I do take offense to that. I do.
No, I'm glad, and that's the point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, simply because it's the intention behind it, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like that has to be present. Rashad, you talked about respectability politics. Look, we know that we're in a different space when it comes to race relations in this country, especially when it comes to cultural race relations. And so, we do have to be very mindful. I'm happy that Ralph Lauren has decided to employ designers from, black designers to represent Morehouse and Spelman. Hell, one of the even they even hired a Morehouse College psychology professor to consult, and he's actually pictured in the campaign, but he was hired to consult on the project.
Mm-hmm. Now that's intentionality, right? So that's intentionality. Before we even get to the marketing and the profitable aspects of this business venture, they took intentional steps to make sure that it's culturally sensitive, it's culturally relatable, and it's respectable to the Black community, which is one thing that I can honor and acknowledge, right? That's something there, because we have seen it in other facets, either through publications, through fashion, through music, when others have actually used token representation of Blackness that actually did us more harm and got more profit off of it. And we didn't see anything go into the betterment of our community, our representation, and our ideologies of how we want to move as people. So with that, I like that idea. And if they start with those two institutions and they scale it out to 10 more, and then they scale it out to all the 100 plus college and institutions that educate Black folks, then I think it's a great start.
It's a great start.
Our school's a national treasure, Rashad. We need to see some more again, some MSU stuff.
Yeah, because I was about to say I will dye that Morehouse M into a Morgan orange real quick, and I will wear that to homecoming.
That's a Ralph Lauren jump. Be like, yo, I got this.
I was so pumped when our school became a national treasure, though. I was like, we are a national treasure, baby. Like, what?
That's wild. Look,
Morgan,
I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, Trends Post and doing the most. Stay with us. It's the Culture on Black Star. All right, folks. The first topic, Netflix knows that you're sharing your password, Rashad and Nero. Network, they know. They already know it. And soon you're going to have to start paying for the privilege. According to a report and announcement by Netflix, they're putting in 2 measures to try to curb that culture, that tendency. One is called what they call extra member. People, and with extra member, people who subscribe to Netflix standard and premium plans can pay to add an account for up to 2 people they don't live with. That's for people like Rashad.
So, but you can have like 5 accounts though. So why?
Because they know you're sharing passwords.
But that's the point. If I had 5 profiles, duh.
They went back and checked their coins and realized they got more viewership than the revenue.
Exactly. They like, wait a minute, hold up. It's a lot more people streaming than we got subscribers.
They're gonna let me log in. What they're gonna do? Like, you can't log in.
No, it's just going to give you a chance to. They're gonna introduce this soon, but they're saying they haven't done this worldwide. They only are going to they're going to do this in some other parts of the world, Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru. So they're doing like a test run, but they're letting Americans know.
Oh, so it's just not an American problem.
Not yet.
This is a global issue
This is a global issue, bro. This is a global
This is a global
This
epidemic.
is a global issue. All right, so that's one of them. They got this thing called extra. Wait. Why does Nira look
we
like?
share? Like if I got Disney Plus and you got Netflix, we gonna share.
All right, so that's one of them. And then the other thing they have is what they call profile transfer, which is an option that let subscribers of any tier transfer their profile information, namely their watch history, to a new account that they would pay for. What? Yep.
So they're changing membership and tier options based off of them trying to make sure that the account personnel is those that is actually viewing it. Man, it took them a while.
It took
them a while to catch on.
I thought you had to pay more anyway to allow like a certain amount of profiles.
Netflix is going up on their.
They already went up multiple times though. They've already gone up.
Yeah, they're going up.
But I'm confused. You can have more than one profile. It's not like me and my sister are using the same profile because then I'll be like, hold up, who watched this show? I'm not on episode 3. I'm on episode 2.
Right.
So it's not like we're using the same profile anyway.
Well, look. All I'm gonna say, dear, is that you will need to cut off some people and stop giving away the passwords.
No, Netflix is the one that I don't have. I have every other streaming service but Netflix.
Listen, Mirror, you on live show. Stay innocent till proven guilty. Don't just be Smollett yourself.
Thank you. All right, let's move on before Mirror incriminates herself.
I'm confused because like on my Disney Plus, like you are allowed to have multiple profiles.
Yeah,
so they saying that we gotta live in the same house. They said we gotta live in the same house.
Yes. Yes. What you think it was for the hood?
Of course not.
Right. Like you got 16 people in your profile. They be looking at your house like.
I only have the allotted amount. I only have the allotted amount that I'm allowed to have.
The allotted amount, exactly. Netflix has currently 222 million subscribers.
Oh yeah, we know that's a low number compared to how many people.
And all of their most popular movies are streamed. They probably like, wait a minute, hold up.
Netflix don't even be having the good new movies for real. They be having the shows. They know
that's interesting.
Let's try this. This is also trending right now. Mike Tyson. Everybody know who Mike Tyson is. He is actually gone into business to release a line of edible gummies. The gummies are shaped like ears, and they're called Mike Bites.
I was good all the way until you told me the shape of the product.
The gummies are called Mike Bites.
I'm gonna support though. I'm gonna support it though.
Look at it, y'all.
I'm gonna support it. Black business.
Oh man, the gummies are called Mike Bites.
When they created this product, was this made in soberness? That's what I'm considering.
No, bro.
And then I want the feedback of Evander Holyfield. How he feel about this? Like
they made it red.
Look, man. Look, people think Mike and Evander Holyfield are actually friends. They're like really good friends. He was actually on Mike Tyson's podcast. If y'all never listened to Mike Tyson's podcast, let me just tell y'all something. Mike Tyson be giving life advice, and you never think that Mike Tyson would give life advice, but Mike Tyson gives life advice on his podcast. I'm trying to remember what's his Hot Boxing. That's the name of the podcast. Hot Boxing. And I'm telling you, he gets straight to the point. He did this one with what is the one that he did with the man that's always getting into Boosie?
Yeah, I watched that one too.
You gotta. If y'all have not seen the Mike Tyson conversation with Boosie on,
you showed me that one. That's the one that you did show me. But I'm tripping off the fact that he made edibles and his podcast is called Hot Boxing because
his podcast is called Hot Boxing.
With the windows rolled up
called Mike Bites.
And do a little something. Mike, we on to you, bro.
No, he already embraces it, Nira. He already embraces it. That's what the whole genesis of his show is. It's like having these thought-provoking conversations from a straight shooter like Mike Tyson while still indulging. And it's good. It's actually great.
Can you imagine eating a Mike Bite, listening to Hot Boxing while watching Mike Tyson on film, bro?
I
I say date night. Date night. Date night.
No, I can't stand.
Eat the gummies. Watch the show. You gotta like that too, because you can't.
Hey, Keenan, real quick, can you please show the picture of the Mike Bites for us, please, one more time, brother? Look at this. Look at this. The pack. If you look at it, wait a minute, hold on, dear. Look, I gotta tell y'all this. Look at the actual bite. It actually has a bite of the ear.
We see it's off.
Man, somebody trademarked this. This is ingenious.
It really is.
Look, this is one of Mike Tyson's biggest boxing moments. Why wouldn't he have something to trademark this?
It's pretty funny.
And it's been years since that moment. It's been years since he's been fighting.
Are these in the dispensary now, or?
Oh my Lord! All right, that's enough for Trends Post and doing the most, man. Thank you, Nir Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nir Muhammad podcast. My man Rashad, thank you so much, brother. Activist, educator, all around good brother. Thank you for both of you for being on the show today and being so good for the culture.
Peace. Always for the culture.
Folks, thank you. Oh my goodness, what a fantastic show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank Hassan Giordano and my national correspondent, Ashley Banks, for checking in and giving us the latest on some of these big stories. Make sure y'all show y'all support, not for Mike Bites, but for Black Star Network, folks. BlackStarNetwork.com. Support Black-owned media like never before. And you can do that right here at BlackStarNetwork.com. And you can do that through Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Zelle, and a whole lot more. All right. So support us, Black-owned media. We bring the stories. We bring you the heavy stuff, but we can bring you the light stuff as well. But we are doing it just for the culture. All right. BlackStarNetwork.com. That's going to do it for me. My time has certainly been very well spent. Stay tuned. 6 o'clock hour, Roland Martin Unfiltered with my big bro, Roland Martin. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right, while being yourself in the process. God willing, we'll talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Appreciate all of y'all. Peace.